Story time about my extremely toxic boyfriend. So when I was in high school, I was dating this boy for 3 months. We're gonna call him Nick. And my friends hated him because he was super mean to all of them, but he was super nice to me. Well, after dating for about a month, he started acting super weird. Like, he stopped paying attention to me, he didn't want to hang out with me. And I was going through depression this time because my dad had just died. I wasn't really doing my makeup anymore, I wouldn't do my hair anymore. And I started gaining a little bit of weight because all I would do is sleep in bed all the time. Eat 24/7. Well, soon our 2 months was coming up. And he wanted to go to this party. So I literally begged him to FaceTime me. And I was asking him, oh, what should I wear? So I put on this dress that was really tight-fitting, which I was already super uncomfortable about wearing because of the fact that I had a little bit of a belly now. So he picks me up, we go to this party, and I go and I start hanging out with a few of my friends. Well, one of my friends comes over and shows me something that he posted on his private story, like for part 2. Part 2 about my extremely toxic boyfriend. So like I said, one of my friends comes over and shows me something that he posted on his private story. It was literally a screen recording of me trying to get the dress on that was super tight-fitting. And then a screenshot of my face after, when I had the dress on. Because obviously I was upset that it didn't fit the way it did before. And the video said, imagine having a girlfriend that was fat as hell. Ew, I have one. Then the picture of me said, ew, she's sad now, like what the fuck, go to the gym and lose some weight. On his private story, which had one of my friends, and she was super pretty, and apparently he tried getting with her. That's a whole nother story. So after that, I Ubered home from the party, and as soon as I got home, I started crying, and I told my older brother about it. So he literally drove us back to the party and beat the absolute shit out of my boyfriend. Well, someone called the cops, my brother spent a night in jail, and my boyfriend got an underage. And my brother won't talk to me now because I'm back with my boyfriend. Storytime about how my best friend found out that I hooked up with her boyfriend. A little background information. I was in high school, and I was best friends with this girl. We're gonna call her M. Well, M and I both had boyfriends, and they were also best friends. But I was super close with her boyfriend, because we had been best friends for like 3 years before they even started dating. Well, the one night we're all at my house, and we're all drinking, having a good time, and I always felt like I had feelings for him, aka my best friend's boyfriend. Well, my boyfriend had to go to his house to get some clothes, and M was the only one sober, so she drove him. So her boyfriend and I are sitting in the living room, and we're gonna call him Nate. Well, Nate and I get to talking, and we were saying how crazy it would be if we started dating. And then I told him that I had feelings for him. And he said that he did too. So we decided to be terrible people, and we hooked up. And after that, we definitely knew that there weren't any feelings there. But he went and got a shower, because he had my lipstick all over him and he was really sweaty. Then my best friend got back, like, for part 2. Part 2 of how my best friend found out that I hooked up with her boyfriend. So like I said, her and my boyfriend finally got back to my house. And she goes, oh, where's Nate? And I told her that Nate was in the shower. I told her that whenever he was trying to pour a drink, he spilt vodka all over his clothes. So we're all sitting there, and then he comes out in the exact same clothes that he had on before. And she was like, oh, I thought you spilt vodka all over your clothes. And he was like, oh, we put them in the dryer. So she literally got up, went over, and smelt his clothes, and they did not smell like vodka. So after that, she starts flipping the fuck out. She's like, why don't your fucking clothes smell like vodka? And then he came up with something. He was like, oh, she got confused. I spilled water all over my clothes. So as we're all watching a movie, I realized that Nate has a hickey on his neck. From me. So I started having her drink a lot because maybe she wouldn't remember and she would have thought that she gave it to him. Well, I woke up the next morning and nobody was at my house. And when I went into the bathroom, I saw that all my hair was cut off. Storytime about the boy across the street who used to stalk me. So a little background information. My parents and I moved into a new house that was literally 5 minutes from where I used to live. But I went to private school, and almost all the other kids in my town went to the public school. So I didn't really know a lot of the kids in my town. Well, a week after we moved in, our neighbors across the street invited us to a barbecue. While we were there, I started talking to our neighbor's older son, and him and I started to get along really well. Like, in a flirty way. Their older son was a senior, I was a sophomore, and their younger son was a freshman. Well, I kind of talked to the younger son, but he was just like giving me really weird vibes. So for the next few weeks, I started hanging out with their older son a lot, and we would talk all the time. Well, the one day whenever I went over their house, it was super weird. His younger brother kept saying, oh, I think I know you from somewhere. Like, I swear I know you. And I'm just like, okay. Well, the one morning I was waiting outside for my mom to pick me up because she worked night shifts and she would just grab me and then take me to my school. And I saw him in his window watching me, like, for part 2. Part 2 about the boy across the street who used to stalk me. So like I said, I saw him watching me outside his window, but I didn't want to overthink it, so I was just like, no, maybe he's looking at something else. Well, this all started a month after I moved in. Well, it started happening more frequently, so then I told his older brother. We're just gonna call the younger brother Mac. So he talked to Mac and then everything was fine for a week. Just a little information real quick. For the public school, the bus would arrive at 7:40. My private school started at 7 o'clock. So my mom would come and get me at 6:15 because my school was kind of far away. So like I said, it was a week later. Every morning that I would go outside to wait for my mom, Mac would be standing on his porch watching me. Oh, but it gets worse. So one night I was in my bedroom, right? And this is like some scary movie shit. I kept seeing something run past my window. My bedroom was on the first floor. So I told my dad about it and he put cameras outside. Well, Mac's older brother told me that Mac was always interested in my life. So me being a smart ass bitch, I told his older brother that our cameras didn't work, like for part 3. Part 3 about the boy that lived across the street who used to stalk me. So like I said, I told his older brother that our cameras didn't work anymore, knowing that he would tell Mac. Because he had it in his head for some reason that Mac wasn't obsessed with me. And the reason why I told him our cameras didn't work was because Mac was watching while the cameras were being set up outside. And after that, everything stopped. Except he would still be outside every single morning on his fucking porch watching me. So the one night while I'm sleeping, I wake up to some noise right outside my window. And my bed was on the same wall as the window, so I could see who was right outside my window, but they couldn't see me. Well, I look, and guess who the fuck it is? It's Mac trying to get inside of my fucking window. So I quietly call my dad, and it's like 3 in the morning. So I tell my dad what's going on. So he goes outside and nobody's there. Well, the next day we check the cameras. There's footage of him jerking off outside my window, trying to break into my room with a fucking crowbar. Luckily, I was staying at a friend's that night, taking pictures of me outside my window. So we showed his parents. Then we moved and they sent him to a mental hospital. Time about how my boyfriend's best friend tried to ruin our relationship. So a little background information. My boyfriend used to be best friends with this one girl. We're gonna call her Jamie. Well, Jamie and my boyfriend were best friends for years, and their friendship was more flirty than anything. Well, him and I got to know each other during track season. So we were always hanging out after school, and sometimes Jamie would be there too. Well, the one night him and I were on FaceTime and we were talking about how we really liked each other. So the next day we started dating. And I was good friends with Jamie too. Then after we started dating, she started acting really weird towards me. Like I would try to say hi whenever I saw her in the hallways, and she would just give me a dirty ass look. So then I told my boyfriend how I thought that she was really mad at me, and he said that he would talk to her. Well, a week before him and I started dating, she told us that there was this guy that she really wanted to ask to prom, and she said that she liked him for a while. Well, then my boyfriend said, apparently a few days ago you were hitting on the boy that she was going to ask to prom. So then I started to connect the dots and I was like, oh shit, like for part 2. Part 2 about how my boyfriend's best friend tried to ruin our relationship. So like I said, I started to connect the dots after that. And then I realized that she was talking about my boyfriend. We're just going to call him Josh. So as he's telling me this, I immediately get a FaceTime call from her. So I answer the phone, and she says, well, I think I should just confront the situation now. So the first thing that she says is, you knew I liked Josh. Like, how could you do this to me? I had a poster board and everything. So I'm just like, well, why didn't you tell me that you liked him? And she goes, what the fuck do you mean? Like, you knew. But I was sitting there thinking about the fact that they were best friends for 5 years and nothing ever happened, so it's really not my fault. And then this girl has the nerve to say, I'm pretty sure if you just break up with him now, me and you can get past this and still be friends. So I said no. So then I called my boyfriend, told him that we talked it out, and I didn't even tell him about what she said or anything like that, because I just wanted the situation to be over and done with. So a few weeks after that, she decided to get her brother involved. Her brother and Josh were best friends, by the way. Well, then her brother told Josh that him and I had been hooking up like for part 3. Part 2 about my boyfriend's best friend trying to ruin our relationship. So like I said, then she got her brother involved. And her brother and Josh were best friends. A little background information here. Josh had stopped talking to Jamie for those few weeks after she called me that night because she was making things really awkward in our relationship and just giving us a lot of problems. So the one night, Jamie's brother texts Josh and he's like, bro, I think it's mad sus how you cut her off when your girlfriend's the problem. So obviously Josh texted him and said, what do you mean? And her brother was like, she hits me up all the time to hang out. We've been hooking up. I can even send you the nudes that she sent me. And before I started dating Josh, there was this boy that I was talking to for like 6 months and I ended up sending him nudes. And yes, they got around the school. But surprisingly, Josh had no idea about them. So her brother sent Josh the nudes and said, bro, here, like, see her face is in it and everything. Lesson learned, don't put your face in nudes. So then me and 3 other people explained to my boyfriend that those were from a while ago. And after that, he just blocked both of them and we're still together. Story time about how I lost my V card. PSA, the only reason why I'm doing this story time is because after I commented on a video, it was highly requested. Okay, let's get into it. By the way, I do not condone any of the things in this story time. One more thing, if you're my family, please skip past this video, if you have not already. So one night, my friends, my boyfriend, and I decided that we were going to take LSD. And it was around 8 o'clock, and our one friend was trip-sitting us. And this was my first time doing LSD. And I always said that I was going to save myself for marriage, you know. Guess not. Well, there was a couch right next to this bed, right? And about 6 hours into our trip, my boyfriend and I laid on the bed. Everybody else was doing their own thing. And our one friend was laying on the couch. He was trying to go to sleep. So my boyfriend and I, a few hours later, we fell asleep on the bed, right? And we wake up in the morning and our friend, we think, is sleeping on the couch. And we were both in the mood. So because we thought he was sleeping, we did the nasty. Well, after I looked over to see if he was still sleeping, turns out he wasn't.
Okay, so me and a couple friends, we have a photo shoot in about 30 minutes. We're supposed to be matching head to toe. We even all got matching masks. Literally everything about us needs to be matching. It's like the purpose of the pictures. I get in my car and I'm on the way there. So while I'm like 20 minutes on the road, then they all want to tell me that they're all curling their hair. Or that they've already curled it. So what, am I supposed to be the oddball? And as you can tell, my hair was straight. I think they were trying to make me look stupid, but I remembered that I had this in my car. So I pulled over and I started to curl my hair. And I'm going to show up with curly hair when they're expecting me to show up with straight hair, because they want me to be the oddball of the picture. I know it's not really that big of a deal, but the point of the pictures are that we're all matching head to toe and everybody else is going to have curly hair and I'm going to have straight hair. But thank God to this thing, I'm going to show up with really curly hair. So, never mind. Olivia just texted me saying she doesn't want me in the pictures anyways, and they all agreed that I can't be in them, so yeah. Story time of how my entire virtual online class found out that I was pregnant, and one of them ended up telling my mom. So due to COVID, where I live, there is no in-person school, so everybody is virtual. So I was in my first block, and you only have to turn on your cameras for when she does attendance, and then when you're talking. So I was called on and I had to answer a question, so I unmuted myself and I turned on my camera. And then when I was done, I turned off my camera, and I think I forgot to mute myself back. After that, during that week, I was already having a pregnancy scare, so I FaceTimed my boyfriend and I went to go take a pregnancy test. Mind you, I don't really listen in class to begin with, so I turned the volume all the way back down because when the teacher calls on you once, she doesn't call on you again. So again, I couldn't hear anything happening in the classroom. So I was on the phone with my boyfriend. I was freaking out while I was taking a pregnancy test, and it ended up coming back positive. So I started freaking out and I started bawling my eyes out. And in my room, I was screaming, I'm pregnant, what am I gonna do? I look back over and the session had ended. And everyone in that class is texting me like, oh my God, are you okay? I'm here for you, blah, 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 blah. So of course I start to freak out. I'm running out of time like for part 2. Part 2 of how my whole entire online class found out that I was pregnant and one of them told my mom. So continuing with the story, I texted a couple of them back and I was like, how did you know? And they were like, we heard you sobbing in the background screaming, I'm pregnant. Then one of them goes, we heard some guy in the background screaming, just get a hanger, and you were screaming, no! Then one of them comes to tell me that the teacher had to start a brand new class because I wouldn't mute myself. So then I emailed my teacher and I told her that I was going through a really hard time and I really do apologize. And then she explained to me that everything was fine, like she understands things happen. So we were all good until like 3 days later. And my mom calls me telling me that somebody in my class had told her that I am pregnant. And I tried telling her like, no, like that is not true. That is not true whatsoever. And then she sends me a recording that somebody else sent her of me in my room bawling my eyes out screaming, I'm pregnant, I don't know what to do. So somebody in my class was a big old snitch and sent a recording of me screaming, I'm pregnant to my mom. And my mom is trying to force me to get an abortion, but I don't want to. To sum it up, I'm moving in with my grandma because she's super, super supportive. And in 3 months, I'll be having a baby boy. Story time of how my mom kicked me out at age 15 because she found out I was dating a mixed boy. So basically, my mom wasn't strict at all and she let me do almost anything that I wanted. But when it came to dating, it was a whole different story. I mean, she let me start dating at 12 years old, but every single time I told her I had a boyfriend, the first thing that she would say is, he better be white. And she'd always say, if it ain't white, it ain't right. Mind you, my preference was mixed and dark-skinned boys. So of course, I'm going to go after to what I'm attracted to. And at 14, I started dating this kid and I asked my mom if I could invite my boyfriend to my birthday. We weren't really doing anything big. It was kind of just like a family party with a couple friends. And she said yes. Mind you, she had never met him or seen a picture of him, so she was kind of excited to meet him. So my birthday comes around and he gets there. And as soon as he walked into the door, I gave him a big hug and my mom turned around and gave me the most evil look ever. She pulled me aside and her exact words were, "Is this a joke?" And she literally said, "I trusted you enough to not bring this kind of hood in our house." I'm running out of time like for this part 2. Part 2 of how my mom kicked me out at age 15 because she found out I was dating a mixed boy. Continuing with the story, after the party, I had asked him to stay for like an hour or 2 later. And afterwards, my mom was just being completely rude the entire time towards him. And right in front of him, she screamed at me and said, "I don't want this type of black trash in my house. Please get it out." Mind you, I hate disrespecting my mom and I never talk back to her, but I yelled back at her and said that was the most disrespectful thing she could have ever said. And while all this is happening, he looks like he's about to bust into tears. Like, I genuinely know this kid had a soft spot for me. So I apologize and I tell him I think it's best for him to leave. And afterwards he FaceTimes me and he tells me that he will do anything to be able to keep me. And after he leaves, my mom tells me that I'm a big disgrace to the family and she doesn't want me living there no more. All over me bringing a mixed guy to the house. I'm now 19 and I'm still with him. And I really haven't talked to my mom since. But that day she kicked me out and I had to go stay with his family. She still wants nothing to do with me because I'm still with a mixed guy. Mom, if you're listening to this, you're a racist piece. Storytime of how my best friend got so weirdly obsessed with me that she even plotted to kill my boyfriend. So at the time, me and this girl, let's just call her Olivia, had only been friends for about 2 years. I mean, we really did everything together. We were with each other 24/7, and I mean, we were pretty good friends. But the only thing about our friendship is she did not like when I had other friends. I mean, she didn't have any other friends herself, but literally she would joke around about strangling my other friends because she didn't like when I gave my attention to anyone else. But honestly, I just thought of it as a joke. And then I started dating this guy, let's just name him Jacob. He was probably the sweetest guy I had ever met, and he was a real simp for me. So we started dating and about 4 or 5 months go by, and he started getting these texts from a random number. And it would always be cringy things like leave her or you die, get away from her, and like stupid cringy threats. Then one night, me and him were just hanging out. Then he gets a text with his exact address saying he had till tonight to leave me or he wouldn't see another day. Then we hear a knock at the door. I'm running out of time, like for part 2. Part 2 of how my best friend got so weirdly obsessed with me that she plotted to kill my boyfriend. So continuing with the story, we heard a knock at the door and it ended up being her. And she said, "Oh, I'm just coming by to check on you and make sure you're okay." Mind you, we were at his house. And he looks at me like, what is she doing here? So I asked her to leave, and then she ends up getting so mad at me just because I asked her to give us alone time. So the night goes on, and then when I get home, she's in my room. At this time, my whole entire family was out of town, and I was the only one home. So I was like, hey. It was literally just like a normal night, and then I go to shower, and when I get back out of the shower, she's gone. And then my boyfriend calls me, and he goes, "Why is Maddie here?" She had like this black mask on, but she's stupid enough to not realize that we know it's her. And I mean, we're being real here. She was my best friend at the time, so of course he's not going to call the police on her. But she had a knife in her hand, and he opens the door and he like pins her against the wall and then calls 911, I guess. And then to sum it up, when they get there, she tells them everything that she was going to do, and then they put her in a mental hospital. But she said that she was going to murder everybody that gets close. Story time of how I burned down my entire house when I was 8 years old. So basically, we had so many candles in the house, I guess just because my mom was obsessed with candles. I was also obsessed with fire. So every time I seen the candle, I would put my finger in the fire. And no, it didn't hurt me whatsoever. I guess it was just amusing to me. And everybody called me a pyro. So one day I was scrolling on Musical.ly, and on like the Feature Me page, I saw something with a candle. And it was like how to make your own candle or something like that. But you had to make your own candle out of a candle. So I went into my room and I closed my door. And like the first step was melting the candle all the way. So I lit the candle and then I put a piece of paper in there. I don't know why I did, but I did. And the fire started getting so big, so I lifted the piece of paper and I threw it on my rug. And I didn't want to get in trouble for fire on the floor, so I just left my room and left it alone. And I kid you not, just a couple minutes later, I hear the smoke detector going off. And my older brother screaming. I'm running out of time, like for part 2. Part 2 of how I burned down my entire house at just 8 years old. So continuing on with the story, after I hear the smoke alarms going off and my brother screaming, I knew exactly what I did. And I blamed it all on my brother. And to this day, they still think it's my brother. Even though it was in my room, but my family believed whatever I said. Anyways, the whole back side of the house was on fire, and we all rush out of the house. And of course, my mom takes care of it. I'm pretty sure she called 911. Well, duh. Sadly, our 2 cats, 2 bunnies, and 4 hamsters were in the house. And our bird, but our bird was getting ready to pass anyways. I'm not sure how, but the house caught on fire so quickly, and the entire thing just blew up into flames. There might have been something else that the fire triggered to make it more big, I guess. I don't really know how to word that. But we ended up raising enough money to move to a different house because we lost every single one of our belongings. When the house burned down, there was only one wall standing, and it was the wall of pictures of my grandma who passed 10 years ago. Story time of how my dad slept with my 16-year-old sister. So yes, my dad did sleep with his biological daughter. So at the time, my sister was 16 and I was 14. Okay, so my sister and my dad had a really weird connection, but I just thought it was because he favorited her and he didn't really like me that much. He ended up saying his favorite was her because he knew that she was easy. But anyways, back to the story. Every single Friday, he would pick my sister up from school during lunchtime and take her back to the house, and they would have like daddy-daughter lunch there. And then my mom would do the same thing with me on Mondays. Okay, so my sister, one of her friends takes her to school and I take the bus in the morning, and I missed the bus one day. And at the time of me and my sister going to school, my parents are already at work. So I just decided that I was gonna have a day off. And yes, this day was a Friday. I'm pretty sure you guys can already see where this story is headed. But I was in my room, I was just chilling, sleeping, and then all of a sudden I hear stuff happening between my dad. Part 2 of how I caught my dad sleeping with my 16-year-old sister. Continuing with the story, after my dad and my sister come home for their lunch, I get woken up from my amazing nap hearing my dad and my sister doing the thingy. When I tell you my sister was off for waiting for marriage, oh my gosh. My sister wouldn't even touch a boy in the wrong spot before marriage. So I don't know how this came about. But listen, I am nosy as heck, so of course I tiptoed all the way over to them. They were in her room. I whipped my phone out so fast I acted like I was on a talk show, and I said, "Presenting." I opened the door and I see my sister and my dad actually sleeping together. They were under the blanket, so I didn't see any private areas. My sister was really popular at school, so out of this situation, I got her to walk me around school everywhere. My dad bought me a car and gave me $1,000. Haha, I made him go broke. Then after I got everything I wanted, I told my mom. She kicked my sister and my dad out, and I'm pretty sure they live together now, but I haven't talked to him since. Story time of how my stepmom got so jealous of me and my dad's bond that she plotted to kill me. So I never really liked my stepmom in the first place because she was a little controlling over my dad, and I just knew that she hated me and I really hated her too. But you know, my dad was in love and he seemed happy, so I didn't really say anything. And my dad would always take me to lunch on Saturdays and Sundays, and we'd have like a dad-daughter bonding day, I guess. And me and my dad were just super close. And every single weekend, me going to lunch with him would start an argument between them two because she said I was taking time away from them two. My dad really never chose sides, but I never really got involved in the relationship as much as I hated her because I just loved seeing my dad happy. Also, at this time, I was 15. And what I'm about to say next might sound just a little crazy and unbelievable, but I'm not sure who she was on the phone with. But while on the phone with somebody, she was talking about getting rid of me. Mind you, my mom had passed away when I was younger, and I really had no other family to go to. Now, this is where the story takes a turn for the worse and she tries to get rid of me. I'm running out of time, like, for the crazy part 2. Part 2 of how my stepmom got so jealous of me and my dad's bond that she plotted to kill me. Continuing with the story, I don't know who she was on the phone with, but I overheard her on the phone saying that she was going to get rid of me. And honestly, I didn't really care and I didn't really think anything of it because I knew she was crazy, but I didn't think she was that crazy. So all of a sudden, she started making me breakfast. And I'm not a breakfast person. I can't eat right when I get up. So every time she would make me breakfast, I'd be like, "Thanks, but I'm not hungry." And she would get so mad. Like, so freaking mad. I'm not gonna get into all the little details, but comes to find out, she was putting rat poison in my food. She had set up cameras in my room. And I don't know what kind of sense this makes. I think she's just crazy, but she started to hide snakes in my room and claim it was my fault that the snakes were coming in my room. Yeah, doesn't really make any sense. Once I told my dad and my dad got out of his little in love stage with her, he finally stepped up and said something to her. And she admitted that she wanted me dead. He eventually called the cops, and to this day, she is in jail for attempted murder. Oh, did I forget to mention the day that he broke up with her, she tried to stab me in the throat. Story time of how my best friend was catfished by my dad. So me and my best friend were kind of just like swiping through Tinder for fun. And then she came across this really hot dude. So of course, she swiped right, and they talked all night long. And he said he had an Android, so he couldn't FaceTime, but his messages were blue, so I thought something was off. She was too blinded to see that something was up in the first place because she was messaging with a really hot guy. So about a week of them just like texting back and forth and I guess getting to know each other, they decided that they were going to meet up. So they both decided that they were going to meet up at an Olive Garden near them. And you see, as her best friend, of course I'm going to have to go with her. So I got dressed up and I sat about 5 tables away from her. And we got there about 30 minutes earlier than we were supposed to be there. Okay, so my best friend had 3 bowls of fettuccine alfredo before he got there. So when he got there, it wouldn't look like she ate a lot. Then I see my dad walk in, all dressed up and fancy with a bow tie and everything. This story time just gets so much more funnier, so like for a part 2. Part 2 of how my best friend was catfished by my dad. Continuing with the story, I see my dad walk into the restaurant all dressed up. Mind you, my dad's married. To my mother, of course. So I was like, ooh, my dad and my mom are finally going on a date together. And then he looks over to my best friend and walks over to the table. When I tell you my heart dropped, my heart has never sank so deep inside me so fast. He sits down and asks her, "Is this Mackenzie?" When I tell you I busted out laughing so freaking hard I fell out of my chair. And almost everybody in the restaurant turned around and looked at me, and so did my dad. And I walk over to the table and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? My best friend is literally just sitting there in shock, no emotion on her face. Then he looks at us, he looks really confused, his face goes blank, and then he goes, I was just trying to teach y'all girls a lesson. I told my mom and I was just getting a laugh out of it, and then she looked through his phone and said that he was meeting up with a bunch of 14-year-old girls. So comes to find out, my dad is a pedophile. My mom kicked him out, and if you're one of those girls, I really do apologize. Storytime of how I found out that there was a guy living in my attic. I'm even pretty sure there's a couple articles on this. So basically, living in the house was me, my mom, my dad, and my younger sister. This story ends up taking a huge twist, so just stay tuned for that. Also, keep in mind that my boyfriend's name at the time was Jacob. When I first started to notice that there was somebody else in my house was when I first started dating Jacob. Mind you, the only time anybody in my entire family has ever been in the attic is the first 2 months that we lived there, and it was only once or twice, and we never seen anything up there. So we would notice that bits of our food would go missing, and every time we packaged leftovers, the leftovers in the Tupperware that we packaged the leftovers in would just completely disappear. And a bunch of my stuff would always go missing. For example, 2 of my pillows and 4 of my blankets gone missing, and my shoes and my clothes, and even my underwear. So one day my boyfriend came over and he left around 1 a.m. So the rest of my family was sleeping. Also, I have the whole entire upstairs to myself, and my mom, dad, and my sister sleeps downstairs. This story just ends up getting really crazy, so like for a part 2. Part 2 of how I found out that there was a guy living in my attic. Continuing with the story, I go downstairs and I walk my boyfriend out to the car. Of course, trying to be quiet because the rest of my family is sleeping. So I go back upstairs. Mind you, I have the whole upstairs to myself. And then I go to the bathroom and there was pee in the toilet. And on the wall in front of the toilet, it said Jacob was here with a heart. So I took a picture of it and I posted it on my private story because I just thought it was funny and cute at the same time. And he slid up and said, what? And then he swore up and down that it wasn't him. So anyways, it freaked me out at first, but at the same time, I didn't really care. So I didn't really pay any mind to it. So to speed the story up, my dad had to go in the attic for something, and he found an actual mattress covered in insulation. And in the corner, he found a guy. The guy looked very sickly, skinny, but scary at the same exact time. So, of course, my dad called 911 right away, and the guy admitted to stealing our food, stealing my underwear, stealing things out of my room, basically stealing from us overall, stealing our food, etc. I'm running out of time, but he ended up being a wanted criminal, but he's in jail now, so yeah. Storytime of how I got sexually assaulted by my stepdad for 4 years straight and nobody believed me. So my mom got with my stepdad when I was 5 years old, and all of the sexual assaulting started around 6. It went from the little things as of just saying dirty jokes to me, all the way to actually sexually assaulting me. One of the little things that he did is he would hide all of my underwear, then tell me I can't wear the dirty underwear that I had on, so I would have to go without wearing underwear, then he'd force me to wear a dress, so it's easier for him to touch me in all the wrong places. And he would always bribe me to sit on his lap by letting me fake drive the car. He would literally sit in my bed while my mom was at work and force me to watch adult videos, and would force my hand in places that it shouldn't go. He has done so much more things to me, but I don't really want to go in detail with everything else. And then one day he told me that if I ever told anybody about this, that I would be in very big trouble in my life and my mom's life would be at risk. And at such a young age, I didn't know what to do, so of course I kept everything to myself. And then things just got a lot worse. I'm running out of time for a part 2. Part 2 of how I got sexually assaulted by my stepdad for 4 years straight and nobody did anything about it. Continuing with the story, he started getting more comfortable with doing more and more things to me. It continued for years and years and years. I started to try to stand up for myself, but it never worked. It always would end up just making the situation worse, and he would harm me in spots that my mom isn't going to check. And again, I was told that if I told anybody, then my life would be at risk, and so would my mom's. And again, I was also younger, so I didn't really know what to do. But then finally came a day where I had enough, and I went to go tell my mom. She told me that I was insane and didn't believe me whatsoever. I went to go try to tell my grandma, my grandpa, my aunt, my uncle, and my brothers, and none of them believed me. None of them believed me until 6 years later. I am now 17, and because my mom was so blindsided by this boy that she didn't believe what was happening in her own household, it caused me to have many scars, very disturbing, traumatizing experiences. Also wish me luck because in exactly 2 weeks from today, I'll be seeing this guy.
I stole my best friend's boyfriend. So a little background information, I was 14 and in 8th grade. And we're gonna call my best friend Ashley. Ashley was really nice at first. She always had my back when I needed her. But then out of nowhere, she started being super rude to me. She turned into one of those pick-me girls that would always make fun of you in front of other guys, talk crap about you to the guy that you liked. Well, the one day I hear her talking shit about me whenever we were in class. And everybody could hear her. She was literally on the whole other side of the class. And I asked her, hey, like, why were you talking about me? She was like, no, I was talking about a different girl. And I had a pretty unique name, so I was like, who else in the school could you have been talking about? But I just brushed it off. Well, then we were in algebra class and I heard her talking shit about me again. How I do my makeup so bad and I can never get a boyfriend, like I'm so ugly and all that stuff. Well, she thought that I wasn't mad at her, so she came up to me the one day and was like, OMG, I have a boyfriend. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how I stole my best friend's boyfriend. So like I said, she would talk shit about me all the time, and I only confronted her that one time, so she thought that we were all good. So the one day before class starts, she runs up to me, she's like, oh my god, you'll never guess what? I have a boyfriend. She's like, he's so cute, he's really popular, he's on the football team. And I was like, girl, whatever, nobody cares. Until I'm sitting in my first class of the day, and I remember that she made out with my boyfriend last year. I forgave her, of course. But because karma was taking a little bit too long, I figured I had to do something about it myself. So my plan was to hook up with her boyfriend. Do I feel bad about it? Absolutely not. So I went to my school's football game, and guess who I saw? My best friend's boyfriend. She couldn't make it that night, she had something to do, so I had him all to myself. So I went up to him, I started flirting with him, and I was like, oh, you should break up with your girlfriend and date me instead. But then he was like, I thought you guys were best friends and I would never date you. Like for part 3 about how I stole my best friend's boyfriend. So like I said, I went to the football game. She wasn't there because she had something else to do. I went up to him. I started flirting. I told him that he should break up with her and date me instead. And I also said that she was a bitch and a whole bunch of other stuff. And he was like, why would you say that about your best friend? And he was like, I would never date you. And I had a feeling this would happen. So I had photoshopped a picture of her and this guy that she sits next to in her lab class. And I showed it to him and I was like, see, she's cheating on you. So he was pissed off. He gave me his number. And the next day he came over to my house. We cuddled, watched movies, we kissed. After 3 months, Ashley found out. We hadn't talked to each other since then, but now I am 16 in 10th grade and still with her ex-boyfriend. Funny thing though, the picture that I photoshopped with her and that guy, she's literally dating him now. So you're welcome, I guess. But anyway, she still goes around talking shit on me. I mean, who can blame her? I did steal. Story time about how my best friend waxed off my eyebrow in my sleep, so I cut her hair. So a little background information. I was 14 and in 8th grade, and my best friends and I were having a sleepover. And right before we had went to sleep, we were all talking about this one TikTok trend that was going around. It's like this trend where girls would go and put wax on their boyfriends while they were sleeping and then take it off. Well, I didn't think anything of it, so that night I went to sleep. I should have knew this was gonna happen because I'm always the butt of the joke whenever it comes to our friend group. Like, I'm always the one getting picked on. Like, there was this one thing that my friend Ashley saw online. It was like, if you put white nail polish on your teeth, it would make your teeth whiter. So who did they decide to try it out on? Yup, me. And yes, I could have said no, but these were my best friends. I didn't think that they would intentionally hurt me. Anyway, so like I said, I go to sleep and all of a sudden I wake up in the middle of the night to something very, very, very hot on my face. I open my eyes and all of my friends are standing above me with their flashlights on. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my best friend waxed off my eyebrow while I was asleep, so I cut her hair. So like I said, went to sleep, didn't think anything was gonna happen, and then I wake up and all of them are standing above me with their flashlights on. And then I realized that Ashley has a stick in her hand. Once I realized that there was wax on the other end of the stick, I started screaming. So then Kelsey decides to cover my mouth. She's like, shh, it's not that bad, I promise, like, don't worry. I get up real quick, I run to the bathroom, and there's like this pink transparent wax on my eyebrow. It was about 3 a.m. and we're all sitting there trying to find ways to get this wax off of my fucking eyebrow. Well, then Amber goes, I'm tired of this, grabs it and rips it off my forehead. So I'm crying at this point. Like, I'm in 8th grade, I'm about to have my glow up, and y'all gotta ruin it with taking my eyebrow off. So nobody went to sleep for the rest of the night because they thought that I was gonna do something to them. So I acted all cool. I was like, no, it's fine, I can just draw it on. When in reality, I was going to cut this bitch's hair. Like for part 3. Part 3 about how my best friend waxed off my eyebrow in my sleep, so I cut her hair. So like I said, nobody went to sleep for the rest of the night. I acted like it was okay because I was plotting in my head that I was going to cut one of their fucking ponytails off. So I go over to their house next week, and every single day that week they were telling me how good my drawn on eyebrow looked. It didn't actually look good, and none of my hairs were growing back. So around 12 o'clock, all of us are ready to go to bed. I'm laying down, pretending that I'm sleeping, and they think I'm sleeping, so they're over there talking shit about me on her bed, Ashley's bed. I wasn't sure which one's eyebrow I should rip off because the one ripped off my eyebrow, but then the other one put the wax on my eyebrow. They were like, she's sleeping. I don't think she's gonna do anything. She doesn't even have the balls to do anything. So around 4 in the morning, everybody is dead asleep. I get up, and Ashley had her hair in a ponytail. So that was easy enough. I grabbed a pair of scissors out of my book bag, and I cut her hair off. Story time about how I slept with my teacher and got pregnant. A little background information, I was 18 and in 12th grade. I had always had trouble in school, especially history class. And I had always had tutors and everything like that. And eventually I just got tired of trying to get my grade up because I realized that it was never going to happen. So my teacher was 27 years old. We're going to call him Mike. And Mike had a girlfriend. He had been staying after school helping me like every single day. From like 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock. Well, the one day I had this outfit on that maybe wasn't that appropriate. And I was being super flirty with him the whole time. To be honest, I just didn't want to put in the effort to get up my grades. And then 10 minutes later, he started getting handsy, and I told him that if he wanted to do anything, he had to get my grade up for me. So he did just that. Well, for the next couple of months, I would go over to his house to study, like for part 2. Part 2 about how I slept with my teacher and got pregnant. So like I said, I got tired of putting effort in to get my grade up, so I let him hit, and then I was going over his house after school. Well, later on at the end of the year, I find out that I'm pregnant. And because I was 18, I really didn't have to care about what my parents thought. So I told him, and surprisingly, this man was on board with it. He was like, oh my god, like, let's do this. I'm so happy. And I was like, what the fuck? Well, his ex-girlfriend found out, so she went and told the school. He got fired. And 3 years later, we're still together raising our child. Story time, my boyfriend cheated on me, so I cheated on him with his cousin. So a little background information, I was 18 and a freshman in college. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for 3 years going on 4. And we were pretty much what you call a very toxic relationship. We would break up with each other, then get back together 5 minutes later. I would say that it's all really my boyfriend's fault, because instead of spending time with me, he would rather go out to the club and sleep with any whore that he could find. But he would always start an argument with me before he went to the club so that way he had a reason to cheat on me. And he's been doing this ever since we first started dating. I don't know why I didn't take that as a red flag, but I'm a dumb bitch who lacks common sense and is completely blind to red flags. So I started a private Snapchat, but I used it as almost like an OnlyFans. Except it was free. I added a bunch of guys on there and my boyfriend's cousins. His one cousin was my best friend and would low-key hype me up, like for part 2. Part 2 about how my boyfriend cheated on me, so I cheated on him with his cousin. So like I said, I made this private Snapchat that was basically like an OnlyFans. And I had his cousin on there who was low-key my best friend. And he would low-key always hype me up on my thirst traps. So eventually I sent him a whole nude picture of myself. His cousin had a girlfriend, but neither of us were going to tell our significant others. And I told his cousin that I would sleep with him if he cheats on me again. Well, what do you know? A few nights later, he calls me starting an argument before he goes to the club. So I go to bed, I'm bawling my eyes out, and he calls me at 3 in the morning asking for me to get an Uber for him and some friends. But I hear a girl talking in the back. So obviously I gave him a hard time about it. So he hangs up on me, calls me 20 minutes later, and I hear this girl talking in Spanish in the background. Me being me, I assume the worst. I assume that he cheated on me. So he calls me the next day saying that we need to talk. I go over there, he says he doesn't want to be with me anymore. Life for part 3.